Good morning, everyone. The hour of 10 a.m. having arrived, the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology will now come to order. Without objection, the Chair is authorized to declare a recess of the committee at any time. I'd like to welcome everyone to our hearing today entitled An Update on the Department of Energy's Science and Technology Priorities. I will recognize first myself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. Before we convene the hearing, I would like to recognize the absence of our friend and the chairman of this committee, Mr. Lucas of Oklahoma. Recently, he endured an injury while working on his farm. Frank is obviously a huge presence on Capitol Hill, both personally and legislatively, and only Frank could prove conclusively that a member of Congress should not tangle with a 1,000-pound bull. I'd like to ask everyone to keep him in your prayers and your thoughts and to wish him a speedy recovery. I know that we will rest easier when he's back with us here on the committee. Today, the Science Technology Committee will examine the U.S. Department of Energy's goals and priorities for its civilian research, development, demonstration, and commercial application programs. I would like to welcome the Honorable Jennifer Granholm and thank her for her testimony this morning. Secretary Granholm, since your last appearance before this committee, which I believe was in May of 2021, the DOE has been substantially transformed. With the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in 2021 and the Inflation Reduction Act last year, the DOE received $100 billion in supplemental funding. These laws have created over 70 new programs and increased the DOE's Office of Loan Program Authority to $400 billion. To administer these new programs, the DOE underwent a major structural reorganization and expansion, creating a new undersecretary position, several new program offices, separating energy demonstration projects from their core research and development activities, and the hiring of over 1,000 new employees at DOE. In the light of these massive changes, which the DOE was tasked with seemingly overnight by Congress, I, along with many of my colleagues here on the dais, are justified in having several serious concerns. The DOE has been placing an unprecedented focus on its applied programs, and I'm troubled by the comparative lack of support for the Office of Science. The DOE Office of Science and its national laboratories play a critical role in maintaining U.S. leadership in emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, quantum information sciences, and fusion energy. Unlike applied research, which the private sector provides abundant resources to fund, the Office of Science conducts basic research, which the federal government provides a primary role in supporting. While the Office of Science accounts for nearly 20% of DOE's annual funding, it unfortunately received less than 2% of IIJA and IRA funds. And while its mission is essential to DOE's overall mandate, the Department, through its budget proposals and administrative actions, I believe, continues to demonstrate an indifference to this central responsibility. So I hope to discuss that with you today. This directly hampers our ability to innovate and compete with our adversaries, especially the Chinese Communist Party. Instead of doubling down on already funded applied energy programs, I believe the DOE should rebalance its portfolio by reprioritizing support for the Office of Science. The DOE can accomplish this by fully implementing this Science Committee's responsible and well-vetted authorization of this office, which was included in the CHIPS and Science Act last year. Also, as the chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee, I am deeply concerned about the Department's lack of resources assigned to the Office of Inspector General. It's troubling to me that among the hundreds of billions in newly appropriated funds and loan authorities, less than 0.1% was allocated to the OIG to oversee this new spending. This lack of oversight amplifies my concerns about the DOE's ability to implement critical research and development programs with the necessary safeguards to protect taxpayer dollars. Today, despite engagement with the DOE over many of these concerns, I remain skeptical about the Department's ability to smoothly oversee the distribution of over $100 billion in addition to its annual $45 billion budget with the necessary guardrails in place. In fact, we have already experienced some problems with how these funds are being dispersed. In the fall of last year, the DOE selected a company with known links to the Chinese Communist Party to receive $200 million in federal funding. After several congressional inquiries over this alarming development, the DOE ended award negotiations with this company. However, as of this morning, the DOE has refused to provide us with its reasoning for terminating this agreement. The committee is waiting to receive a classified briefing by the department regarding this critical issue, and our expectation is that we will receive more information on this shortly. In addition, over the past few months, Energy Subcommittee Chairman Williams and I have submitted letters to the department requesting information on a disturbing trend of conflict of interest violations. Most recently, our oversight touched on your own practices, Madam Secretary. As public servants, I believe it's critical that we hold ourselves to the highest levels of integrity with the American people, not only in practice, but also in public perception. I hope that we have an opportunity for a productive discussion on these issues this morning. This is an unprecedented time at the Department of Energy. Americans deserve access to a secure, resilient, and affordable energy network which permits competition and increases reliability instead of picking winners and losers in the marketplace. But we must neither break the bank nor cut corners to get this job done, and I know you share those sentiments. I want to thank you for your willingness to participate in our hearing today. I look forward to an update on your vision for the DOE and how the Department intends to carry out congressional direction in a way that maximizes the return on investment for the U.S. taxpayer. Thank you, Ranking Member Lofgren. Ladies and gentlemen, our witness today is Secretary Jennifer Granholm, the 16th Secretary of the United States Department of Energy. Secretary Granholm, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to present your testimony.
Great. Thank you so much, Chairman Obernolte and Ranking Member Lofgren and members of the committee. I'm honored to be here with you today to discuss the Department of Energy's science and innovation priorities. Over the last 2.5 years, it's been my great privilege to be able to lead this agency, which I fondly refer to as America's Solutions Department. From unlocking the secrets of our universe to developing innovative tools and algorithms to building cutting-edge technologies, groundbreaking scientific solutions are at the core of DOE's DNA. This work is critical to ensuring the United States can outcompete our rivals, outmaneuver aggressors, and deliver more reliable, resilient energy for our people, especially as we face unprecedented challenges. Last week, the World Meteorological Organization confirmed that this was the hottest summer ever recorded on Earth. In July and August, average temperatures were roughly 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial levels, which is the exact threshold scientists have warned that we cannot breach without causing catastrophic and irreversible changes to our climate. Our communities are suffering the consequences: fiercer heat waves, hurricanes, wildfires, floods that are only going to become more frequent and costly in the coming years. Indeed, there have been 23 extreme weather events this year costing over $1 billion so far. It's only September. The record for those kind of events, $1 billion events in the past, has been 20 in a year, and that was for the whole year. So no doubt climate change is one of the greatest scientific challenges that we've ever faced. And on the flip side, it also presents one of the greatest economic opportunities of this century. The global market for decarbonization technologies is expected to reach $23 trillion, at least, by the end of the decade. America's innovation capabilities uniquely position us to corner this market, and thanks to the bipartisan assistance that we've received from Congress, the department, as was noted, now has more tools than ever to drive those efforts forward. With the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, which granted appropriations for many of the programs authorized by the Energy Act of 2020, we're marshaling DOE's applied science breakthroughs out of the lab, onto the marketplace, and into the field. And as of today, I'm proud to say that we've launched 98% of our programs under IRA and Bill. We're funding demonstration projects for next-generation technologies like clean hydrogen, long-duration energy storage, advanced nuclear, direct air capture. We're working closely with industry to accelerate their commercialization. And we're making the United States the most attractive destination for investment in new energy technologies, which will boost our energy security and independence. All of this will ensure American workers and families reap the benefits of our scientific capabilities through good-paying jobs and lower energy bills. Still, we know maintaining our edge depends on continuous innovation, and thanks to this committee's efforts, the CHIPS and Science Act granted the first ever comprehensive authorization of DOE's Office of Science, which will help us to secure U.S. leadership in the technologies of the future. President Biden's budget request for fiscal year 24 calls for $8.8 billion in appropriations for this office, advancing toward the CHIPS authorized level so we can get to work. This includes more than $1 billion for fusion research, one of the most exciting pieces of our basic portfolio of science. Our Lawrence Livermore, as was noted, National Lab now achieved fusion ignition not just once but twice, and in the meantime, we've hired a new associate director for our fusion office. We've awarded $46 million to companies who are advancing commercial fusion energy. The President's budget request would allow us to fully capitalize on those breakthroughs. It will also let us accelerate progress in the emerging field of artificial intelligence. DOE has been harnessing AI technologies since the 1960s, giving us unique insight into their power and limitations as we're reaching a threshold where they may be used, as was noted in the Capitol yesterday, for more widespread applications for good and for bad. We are eager to use AI for good in science. The department's been able to make real progress in these matters thanks to Congress. But there's more work ahead. Our ability to tackle it depends on your continued support. And thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I look forward to taking your questions.
Well, thank you very much, Secretary Granholm, for your testimony, and I know we're all eager to ask you some more questions about your vision for the future of the DOE. I'll begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes for questions. In my opening statement, I mentioned my concerns about a lack of additional funding for the Office of Science within the DOE. And the point that I made is that funding basic science is a fundamental part of the DOE's mission. When we talk about applied science, that's a field where there's abundant resources in the private sector to also provide funding for research. But basic science, often it's government that provides that fundamental source of funding. So I am concerned that less than 2% of the IIJA and IRA resources are being put towards basic science with the Office of Science. Could you address that concern and tell me whether or not you share it?
Well, we have put forward a robust Office of Science budget, and it is important that science, along with applied and strategies to deploy these technologies, all work in a continuum. Office of Science has been instrumental and will continue to be instrumental in being the framework on which all of the rest of the architecture of this new energy economy, the existing and the new energy economy, will rest. So I agree with you about the importance. I don't agree with you about deprioritizing. We have prioritized science. We have asked for an increase in science. We want to get to the authorized level of the CHIPS and Science Act. We hope that we can get there within the next 2 years.
Well, it sounds like we're in furious agreement on it.
All right,
so
good.
Look forward to working with you on making sure that basic science is not neglected. I also mentioned in my opening statement my concerns about a lack of additional funding for the Office of the Inspector General within the DOE. We had a hearing in this committee several months ago in which we had testimony from several OIGs within our committee's sphere of jurisdiction, including that of the DOE. And those concerns were surfaced in that hearing. In particular, I'm concerned that we are asking you to distribute $100 billion in new funding, and yet only 1/10% of that actually goes to the OIG to oversee the distribution of that funding and make sure the rules are being followed. Is that a concern that you share, and what can we do to address it?
Well, I know that the OIG office request is a doubling of the funding of what it was last year, which is important recognition that oversight is very important. We agree on this as well, that oversight is necessary. We are in constant contact with our OIG to make sure that we are setting up programs in a way that are consistent with protecting the taxpayer dollars, making sure we are doing things in the right way. So we believe that the OIG should be funded at the level that is necessary, and to that end, I know that there has been a doubling request.
What do you think will be the department's response to that request?
Well, we have put forward that's part of what our budget request is.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I think that we all agree on the importance of the role that the OIG plays in making sure that there's transparency and accountability within the department.
Yes.
Having those resources available just forestalls future problems. And so I'm appreciative that you share our point of view on that. One more thing that I wanted to discuss with you is the National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource, which is something that's very near and dear to my heart. As you know, AI is going to play an increasingly critical role in the development of our economy and the empowerment of American workforce. I am concerned, though, that the concentration of the power to create advanced AI foundational models might wind up resting in the hands of only a couple of companies. And that's something I think would be very destructive to entrepreneurialism and transparency in our country. It's been our tradition that academia has been the home of cutting-edge research, and the transparency that's enforced by our academic system, I think, has been good not only for advancing the frontiers of human knowledge, but also for giving the public the confidence that this information is being developed and shared transparently. The purpose of this resource would be to make sure that our academic institution, our researchers, and our students have a shared resource available to them to be able to access the amount of compute that's necessary to do this research. Is that something that the DOE supports? Because you would have a fundamental role to play in overseeing it.
Yeah, the NAIR process is something we support, and we've also put forward a strategic plan called FAST. So NAIR, we are in partnership with the National Science Foundation. That goal is to basically sort of democratize AI and to make sure it does get out into the academic institutions so that we can create a workforce for AI. There's a component of it that is more secure, that relates to national defense. That is the part that's being led by the Department of Energy. And then because we have these massive computers, these exascale computers, onto which so much of the AI capabilities that offer is to the private sector as user facilities, we want to make sure that the foundational models, as you say, are done as well in the national labs in addition to academia.
We'll look forward to working with you on that. I see my time has expired.